Ready? Good afternoon. Our democracy works because our nation's commitment to the rule of law, the faith of its citizens have that elections will be fair, transparent, and that all legal votes that all the votes will be counted. Unfortunately, it's becoming increasingly clear that this has not been the case in the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit's attempt to block Republican poll challengers from supervising the process is one example. The city of Detroit intentionally deceived the media about the presence of Republican poll challengers by continuing to count Republican poll challengers who had left the building in their official total and not allowing replacements to come to fill those vacancies. They had no sign-out process and knowingly created a system that were not permitted to have the number of challengers that were legally obligated to have. To hide their blatant partisanship, city employees who then covered the windows of the TCF Center to conceal the truth. What else could they be hiding? Jocelyn Benson ran on a promise to be transparent, and this election has been anything but transparent. We are also highly disturbed by the fact that the Secretary of State was unable to tell voters how many votes were left to be counted, often citing figures which had no apparent basis in reality. I don't understand. It's simple math. I don't believe it's unreasonable for the people of Michigan to expect the Secretary of State to report within a few hours the total number of ballots cast. Woo! Repeatedly in interviews with the media, Secretary of State Benson continued to state that there were about 100,000 ballots to be counted, despite the fact that tens of thousands of ballots continued to be added to the city's total and that those interviews were hours apart. In addition, it should not have been difficult to find this number, seeing municipalities are required to report how many absentee ballots they have received. Simple math should have made it easy to know how many absentee ballots needed to be counted. Jocelyn Benson has repeatedly tried to dismiss these allegations of election irregularities across the state, just like she tried to use legal threats in October to bury the Michigan Republican Party story about malfunctioning election equipment in the city of Lansing, a story proven true by the press. If all this wasn't enough, in Antrim County, ballots were counted for Democrats that were meant for Republicans, causing a 6,000 vote swing against our candidates. The county clerk came forward and said tabulating software glitched and caused a miscalculation of the votes. Since then, we have now discovered that 47 counties use this same software in the same capacity. Antrim County had to hand count all of the ballots, and these counties that use this software need to closely examine their results for similar discrepancies. The people of Michigan deserve a transparent and open process. Voters deserve to know that all legal votes are being counted. And the Michigan Republican Party will continue to fight to make sure that this stops occurring in our state.
Thank you.
I do want to add, if you have any information about any specific situations, we encourage people to email SAVEVOTE, S-A-V-E, at migop.org, or you can call 87-SAVE-VOTE. That's 877-283-8683. Thank you very much, and it's my honor to bring our national committee, our RNC Chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, to share her comments. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Laura Cox, for your leadership in the great state of Michigan, my home state. And we, of course, want to make sure that every legal vote is counted. and we have seen some discrepancies in Michigan and some irregularities that deserve investigation. Democrats and the media spent 4 years and millions of taxpayer dollars talking about a Russia hoax on the grounds of election integrity. Now, with just over 48 hours after polls have closed in an actual election for president, they want to ignore clear irregularities, rush to call states as one, and end this election. We will not stand for that. Every candidate in every office, from president down to the local level, has a legal right to challenge irregularities that occur in the process of canvassing ballots. We intend to ensure that every lawful voter has their vote counted in accordance with the law, that observers are granted the access they are due under state law, and that any irregularities that have occurred, whether by malicious intent or incompetence, are fully investigated to the fullest extent allowed under the law. We will not give up on this process until every last issue has been resolved. Today we announced that the RNC has deployed legal teams in 4 states, including Michigan, to investigate clear irregularities with vote counting and tabulation in those states. They will work with state and local authorities to ensure that a legal count is conducted in accordance to each state's laws and that every vote is counted. It is crazy to us that the media would call a race like Arizona for Biden when our side still has enough votes to win. But in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, where in some cases the margin is only a few thousand votes, the media is quick to try and claim those races are over and Biden has won. If the shoe was on the other foot, the president and President Trump was in the lead in all these states, the media would be screaming that the race is not over and we need more time to count and make sure it was right. But because Biden is in a very slight lead, the media demands the race is over and there is nothing to see here. The American people need to have confidence in our elections. Right now, we don't have that because across the country, Democrat officials are shutting down transparency, especially here in the state of Michigan. Democrats are damaging the country in the process of a smooth transition of power by not allowing a transparent process. Right here in Michigan, just last night in Oakland County, we found 2,000 ballots that had been given to Democrats that were Republican ballots due to a clerical error, and this took place in Rochester Hills. In Wayne County, Republican poll watchers were denied their legal right to monitor the election and purposely kept in the dark, both literally and figuratively, with poll workers blocking windows and padlocking doors. There are hundreds of reports of our poll watchers being intimidated and unable to do their job. There was a major software issue in Antrim County that we have concerns could have caused problems in other counties as well. This issue was brought to our attention by Congressman Bergman's office when they noticed the results being drastically different from what they expected and what they have received from that county in past elections. When they inquired with the clerk, they were told it was a software issue and it was corrected. But now we know that 47 counties use that same software. At the TCF Center in Wayne County, we have received over 100 incident reports of irregularities. This is a massive mail ballot counting center, and we need time to go through these reports and investigate them. Here's an example of just one of them. On November 3rd and 4th, a whistleblower was assigned to work on problem ballots in the TCF Center Adjudication Center. This is not a Republican poll worker. This is an actual election worker. A bundle of ballots with no receive date were brought to the whistleblower. The ballots should not have been immediately counted because there was no evidence. The ballots were received by the state-mandated deadline of November 3rd. On the morning of November 4th, whistleblower was instructed by their supervisor to take the ballots with no dates, enter them into the electronic record, and place either November 2nd or November 3rd as the date received. This is illegal. This whistleblower was uncomfortable entering the dates on the ballots with no evidence. They were received on either of those dates. Election workers became angry at the whistleblower and blocked this individual from the process. According to the whistleblower, all election workers were given this same guidance. Reportedly, one of the individuals was a contractor, a city contractor, and former director of elections, Chris Thomas. These allegations have been referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Michigan. We have heard other instances of election workers verbally accosting our poll watchers and refusing to let us challenge questionable ballots. Election workers were wearing Biden shirts and applauding when our poll watchers were removed from the counting facility. Of the few ballots that Democrat election workers did allow us to challenge, our observers say those ballots were then moved back into the regular pile after our poll watchers were intimidated and pushed from the process. Finally, our campaigns have also not yet been able to view video surveillance of ballot drop boxes and have meaningful transparency over that process. This is our democracy.
Yeah.
To see people not be able to observe in Democrat-run cities across the nation is not okay. We need to pursue these irregularities, and we need people to be patient and give us the time to investigate. These are serious allegations of changing the date on ballots and refusing to let people observe in a meaningful way an election of this magnitude. To see our leaders in Michigan not step forward, Jocelyn Benson, Gretchen Whitmer, to allow our poll workers to observe this election has caused further uncertainty. We will pursue all of these irregularities. Please give us time to do that, because it is concerning and every vote matters. The fight is not over. President Trump will continue to fight for us, and we will continue to fight for him. And I just want to add one other thing. As the canvasses are taking place right now, we are still being prevented from having meaningful access to observe the process. We call on Secretary of State Benson and Governor Whitmer to allow our canvassers or our watchers to be able to have a meaningful presence in these canvases so that we can have a surety that this is a fair and free election. This is important for all of us. To support the president, you can visit GOP.com to donate, or if you see signs of voter irregularities, and we literally have a hotline with hundreds and hundreds of complaints coming in, we will track each of them down, vet them, make sure they are credible. And please report them to DJT45.stopfraud or 888-630-1776. Thank you for your time, and I would like to take a few questions.
We're going to take the first two from Craig and Malachi, and then we'll open it up from there.
Great.
Yep, and then Malachi.
Chairwoman, Joe Biden is up by 146,000 votes in Michigan right now. Are you suggesting that there's enough fraud in the state to call into question that vote total?
What I am suggesting is with an irregularity like this, and with election workers being told to backdate ballots against state law, this needs to be pursued. And it needs to be pursued not just by Republicans, but also by Democrats. Because if we are going to come out of this and say this was a fair and free election, what we are hearing from the city of Detroit is deeply troubling. So we're going to pursue this. You know, the media, Joe Biden, have all said be patient. We should be patient, but we should also be patient as we pursue these irregularities, because this is incredibly troublesome to have this reported allegation that a former director of elections from the state of Michigan, Chris Thomas, instructed every election worker to backdate ballots. We need to get to the bottom of that.
The president has not only said there's irregularities, he said he's won the state and this election has been stolen from him. That's a little bit different than what you're saying today.
Well, I think everyone agrees we should pursue these irregularities and take time. In Pennsylvania, there are 100,000 provisional ballots. In Georgia, we're in a recount. In Arizona, they called the election too early. We need to have assurances, Republicans and Democrats, that this is free and fair. It is only in Democrat-run counties and precincts that Republican poll watchers were kicked out and unable to observe the process. If there's nothing to see there, then let us watch. Then let us watch. Let us have that assurance that this is being done fairly. But I have talked to people. These aren't people I'm just hearing from. This isn't something I'm seeing on the internet. And we want to vet it, and we want it to be credible too. So it does take a process to get a statement, to an affidavit, to a lawsuit. But the thing that I'm hearing from people I know who were at TCF, they weren't allowed to come back in if they left the room, the hostility they dealt with. not being able to watch military ballots be transposed, seeing ballots that were put into the invalid pile being put in the valid pile after they had been challenged. A total hostile environment, very different than what the Secretary of State has put forward. So we will have hundreds of these incident reports, and then we will turn them into affidavits. It's a process. But we need to get to the bottom of this, because we cannot continue to have the city of Detroit have these issues, and we need to reform our election system here in Michigan.
One of the Court of Claims judge said one of the reasons she ruled against you is she said you waited too long. You can't get the relief you want, which is people in the room. What do you want to have happen now?
Right now, I want to pursue this and have the time to pursue these irregularities. I hope the press will join us in this. If there is somebody at that high level, at the city level, telling election workers to backdate ballots, that is a huge it is illegal. We need to get to the bottom of that. Now, this is alleged, and we need to pursue that. I hope the press will continue to do this as well.
But you can't stop the counting, because the counting is done. So what specifically?
Well, one, we'll see how broad this went. We'll see what level of this happened within Detroit. We also want to look at the software issue with these 47 counties. I think it's interesting that last night in Oakland County, 2,000 Democrat ballots were switched to 2,000 Republican votes, but because of a clerical error. So give us time to have a canvass and a certification. We have these things for a reason. We have canvasses for a reason. To not allow us to watch this canvass process is only going to divide our state more. Let people watch. Let them have that transparency. And let me say this, if Republicans were not allowing Democrats to watch right now, you'd be at these canvass centers. You wouldn't be here. So this is a problem.
Where specifically are you not?
Detroit.
You're in Detroit, you're not allowed to...
We are having issues right now. I heard it from the James
Is
campaign
it
today.
anywhere else in the state?
We will find out Oakland County as well. We will find out. So what we've heard last night as well, or at TCF, is they would force our poll watchers to be 6 feet back so they couldn't see. Part of being able to observe is actually seeing the ballots and making sure that you can say that this was done in a correct way.
I'm talking about the count, I'm talking about the canvas.
And that's happening in the canvas as well. Correct. This needs to stop immediately. And the Secretary of State, if she really cares about transparency and she really cares about fairness, should intervene and make sure that every single person at a canvas right now has the ability to meaningfully observe and give assurances that things are being done correctly.
Do you believe that Michigan needs a recount, or will you be asking for that?
You know, we'll look at these software issues and we want to pursue these irregularities. I think it's deeply concerning if election workers are being told to backdate ballots. This is something that obviously is illegal, but we need to find the breadth of this, and we will be pursuing that. We're not going to get there yet. I'm not going to jump the gun. But these irregularities are so concerning that all of us should be worried. I will tell you this, being a chair of Michigan in 2016, where 53% of the ballots could not be counted or in the precincts in Detroit because the poll book did not match the ballot box, Michigan needs election reform. And it is time for Democrats to join us, because we will never have a sureness in our elections if we do not fix what's happening in the city of Detroit. And kicking Republicans out and not letting us meaningfully observe is only exasperating the differences and the division in our country and in our state. And that comes from the top. That is your governor, that is your Secretary of State, that is your Attorney General. You need to fix this problem, and you need to make sure that every vote, Republican and Democrat, in the state of Michigan counts. That is all we are asking for.
Will you appeal the Court of Claims decision?
I'm not going to get into any court actions right now. Right now I'm sharing with you meaningful evidence that we have seen with these irregularities that we are going to be pursuing, and we hope that you will be patient and also follow this evidence as well as we put this out as we are gathering it through the state.
We did ask the Secretary of Vincent just yesterday about the poll watchers, the challengers that were inside of TCF. She told me specifically, I talked to her one-on-one, that there were even numbers of Republicans and Democrats.
That's not right.
Are you saying she's a liar?
I'm saying she's being dishonest. I am. People were there, and Chairman Cox just spoke about this. They kept the numbers the same as people left. I have talked to people who said they would systematically come to people who were making challenges or being disruptive, they thought, and they would remove them from TCF. This happened throughout the night. Listen, investigate it. Don't trust me? Fine, don't. But don't just take her word for it. Don't just take her word for it. Interview every Republican who was there. We'll be giving you their names. Investigate it, please. Do your job. Do your job. Do not be biased. Do not bring your bias into this. It is hurting our country. People deserve to feel like this was a fair and free election. And what happened in Detroit is a disgrace, and it was overseen by Benson, Whitmer, and the city of Detroit, and it is shameful, and people who were there were kicked out and not able to meaningfully observe, and that is hurting our process in Michigan. So please investigate. We will help you.
Was it appropriate for challengers to be outside pounding on the windows and demanding to be let in?
You know, Kathy, we've had a lot of protests in this country recently. People are upset. They care about this election. But when you're boarding up windows and kicking people out, they're frustrated. It's concerning. And how does that make people feel faith in the process? How? I mean, it's not okay. And I want to ask every single one of you, if this were in Ottawa County, if this were in another county in Michigan and Republicans were kicking out Democrat poll watchers and boarding up windows and doing the things we saw, you guys would be saying something was wrong. And I know that. This is wrong, what happened in Michigan. Now, we're not saying, you know, we're saying we're just going to pursue the irregularities, and we're asking you to pursue the irregularities with us. Please. And please help us change our election system in Michigan. This is the second presidential election where this happened. I sat in the recount in Detroit. It is abysmal that only 50% of the precincts could be counted because of the discrepancies between the poll book and the ballot box. It is time for meaningful reform in the state of Michigan.
Are you telling Michigan that they should have been counting ahead of the election?
They did process ahead of the election. They passed legislation to be able to do that.
Chairwoman, I have a question. I was there, and ma'am, I don't know what news organization you're with, but I have footage on my cell phone I can show you of Democrats clapping when one of our Republican attorneys was escorted out simply for wanting to challenge an irregularity. We were outnumbered there. And my question to you, Chairwoman, is what are they doing to investigate fire marshal code violations with all these padlocks that were on the door? God forbid if a fire were to break out in there, they had all these doors padlocked off. What would have happened then? We need to look into that as well.
I think that's a great question. Thank you for your service and going down. You know, people who are going to be poll watchers are patriots on both sides. They're going and they're saying, I want to make sure that I can go back to my neighborhood, that I can go back to my friends and family and say this was done well. That is not the story that is coming out of Michigan right now, and we need to fix it. And I think you're right. You should be padlocking doors and covering windows. Those are things that will be investigated. And all we're saying today is please be patient, but also please pursue these irregularities with us. And whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 votes that were disenfranchised, that deserves to be heard. It's not okay.
Last question. Madam Chair, will many of these irregularities be sorted out in the
Yes.
canvassing process as they always are?
Well, if we're able to observe them, correct? And we're not able to observe them right now, just like we weren't able to observe the vote counting. So right now, we don't have faith in the system that Jocelyn Benson and Gretchen Whitmer have set up for the state of Michigan. And we need to make sure that this canvass process is done in a fair and safe way, that we are able to meaningfully observe. We are calling for that today. And we also need to pursue these irregularities. We invite Democrats to pursue these irregularities with us. I think they want to make sure that these things that didn't happen. I don't think they should be okay with ballots being backdated against election law. So these are things that should be bipartisan. Unfortunately, I don't think they will be. But I think that this is something that should bring everyone together. We want every vote to count, Republican and Democrat.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Excuse me.
See you guys. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Excuse me, guys.